Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mindshifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
To the brightness within you, and the truth that is rooted within me.
Hi, and welcome to Mindshifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, that's Dr. Michael Ryce. Today is our Memorial Day celebration, 290. We've been doing this getting close to a year now. Michael will talk a little more about that here in a moment. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Press 1. That puts you in queue to talk to Michael. We'd love to hear from you, your comments and questions. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, sweetie. Welcome to the show, everybody. We're delighted to be here to support you, to serve you, and to talk about the ancient Aramaic idea of forgiveness. Our activities here in Florida will be in Boca Raton tonight at 7 o'clock in Healing Through Relationships, free open workshop. On Friday, we'll do Codependence to Interdependence at the Science of Mind or Center for Spiritual Living in Boca Raton. If you're in that area, come and join us tonight, Friday night. Saturday, we'll be at a place called the Heart Painter Studio doing Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing. So we've got that happening, and then Sunday we start in Tampa. We'll be a full week, Sunday through Saturday, actually, at Unity North in Tampa. And on we'll go from there. You can look at our website, www.whyagain.com. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. If you have a question, a thought for us, need support with any of the tools we teach, it would be delightful to give you that support. And as far as the Memorial Day celebration, this is kind of our opener of every show, and that is an invitation. We have a plan, and our plan is to put an end to war on planet Earth. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to invite everybody that we're in touch with to take responsibility for what goes on inside of them. And if they're in any form of hostility or fear, instead of finding somebody else to blame, instead of pointing the finger at someone else, to take responsibility back and begin to suspect that. Seeing as how you've been through that painful, upsetting situation 87 different times with 42 different people, you might start to suspect that you're the only one that was there every time, and realize that it's about you, it's not about them. But when we go into a state of denial, we literally hide or dissociate from a part of our own minds, and that's when we can buy into the belief that what's going on inside of me is somebody else's fault and somebody else's problem. If you'd like to know how to change that dynamic, please go to our website, whyagain.com. On the right-hand side, there's a link that says Download Worksheets. There you'll find a total of, 7 links that relate directly to learning the forgiveness process. The first link is new chapter 24 of my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Second link is a reality management worksheet, the actual forgiveness process, how you do it, fill in the blanks. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh links are radio shows where we have walked somebody through the process. You have a full customized set of instructions for how to walk through that worksheet. And we're here to support you if you have any questions on that. And so Dr. Tim with us today, David with us today, Jeanie?
David is on the switchboard. Tim is in the chat room, but he's not on the switchboard.
Okay, well, welcome, gentlemen. David, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, Michael. I'm doing very well. Beautiful day here in the Ozarks, especially for this time of the year. And just looking forward to participating on the show today. See who's calling in about what.
Cool. Glad you're here. And, Jeanie, are there any callers? Anything happening in the chat room?
No, we have a whole lot of people on the switchboard. We've got probably about 8 people in the chat room. But nobody has their hand up. Nobody's got a question, so. Oh, we just had a hand come up.
Awesome.
Area
Let's
970, you're on the air.
Well, that was a
Hey,
big
Michael.
breath.
Hello, it's Carrie in Colorado.
Hi, Carrie. That was a big breath.
Actually, I was trying to get my speaker on my phone. I cannot stay on the line. I'd like to listen to your answer, but the other day I called in kind of bringing up Syria, but, you know, any place where there's war in the world and that kind of devastation, it really makes me sad. And I would like to understand better how to work with forgiveness sheets when that kind of stuff comes up, when I hear it on the news, and I feel I'd like to be an energy that helps create change. So I wondered if we were kind of on that, I don't know, it might have been Friday or something, but I'd like to have you expand on that a little bit for me, help me understand how I can participate in a way besides just my own personal work, you know, to help clear that kind of energy.
Okay. Well, the first thing that I would invite you to do, and if you can stay on at least for a minute or two for a question or a couple of thoughts.
Okay.
And I know that you've got a full set of DVDs now, so the communication, did you hear what I think I said? Video might be a good one to watch at this point. And you might say, well, I want to watch communication because I want to fix war on the planet. Well, if you look at the power of words, one of the things we get into in that workshop is that words instruct our mind how to build the world we see. The world that we see through what we call our body's mind does not exist in any way, shape, or form as we see it out there. Elsewise, if we were sitting in a courtroom and there were 6 different people who were at an accident, all 6 people would have the same descriptors. If we listened to 2 people who were in an argument, both people would have exactly the same story if they were experiencing what actually happened. It's pretty easy to come to the conclusion that we're experiencing a perspective on what happened, and that perspective is very limited. And the thing that sets the perspective up is the words that we use. So when you say, you know, when I hear about these wars going on the planet, it makes me sad. What you're saying to your mind is, mind, I want you to build me a world. And in this world view, in this world picture, I want you to show me that my sadness has nothing whatsoever to do with me or the losses I've experienced, but rather it has to do with the fact that out there's a thing called war. So now I'm dissociated from the part of me, because when I say, show me it's something out there, I have to dissociate from something in here. Being dissociated from the part of me that holds sadness, I am now one who contributes to the energy of war with my sadness, with my grief, with my loss, with my rage, whatever it is. And recognizing that, if I bring something based in hostility or fear to an event in the world that is hostility and fear-based, energetically, I am a contributor to that. One of the points we get into in our codependent, or pardon me, the communication, did you hear what I think I said workshop, is that the mind works something like a set of truck brakes. There is an inhibitor chemistry. About 95% of the brain's chemistry is tied up in inhibiting brain cell firings. That is, stopping the firing of brain cells. Very much like if you've ever driven an 18-wheeler, you know that you can't just jump into the truck, start it, and drive away. You have to start the truck, and you have to wait for air pressure to build up because the movement of the truck is inhibited constantly by the fact that there are a set of strong springs that hold the brakes on in the on position so the truck can't move. In order to move the truck, you've got to build up air pressure, and the air pressure becomes the anti-inhibitor that pulls the brakes off of the brake drums so the truck can move. Otherwise, it's kind of a fail-safe mechanism. Somebody's going down a hill and they lose their power, the truck automatically stops. In the same way, the brain works with inhibitor chemistry, and words, much like the air pressure, are the anti-inhibitor. And so I need anti-inhibitors in my brain for truth in order for my brain to show me the truth. So when I say to myself, and I use the type of communication that we call responsibility communication as opposed to projection, when I say, that out there makes me sad, I'm in projection communication. Responsibility communication would look like, when I hear about war and I think about the suffering that people go through and the insane loss of life and abuse that happens, that really brings up great amounts of sadness for me. And I realize that while I look at war through the eyes, through the mind, through the heart of sadness, grief, loss, rage, pain, that the energy I'm contributing to what I'm looking at, there's something in science that's been very well documented called the observer effect. It's very difficult to do scientific measurements of microparticle activity and get consistent results because the observer changes what's being observed.
Right.
So when I'm the observer of insanity out of a mind based in insanity, I am a contributor to. I change it in the direction of more insanity. When I take responsibility and then I apply the tool of forgiveness inside myself, I realize I have this sadness, rage, grief about these wars. Kind of like, while I have to think about it, it's kind of like the rage I used to have when I'd watch Mom and Dad fighting, and I'd scream and I'd, try to get in the middle of it. I remember one man that I worked with who realized that as a kid, the one way that he could get his parents to stop fighting was to have an asthma attack. And the conclusion, what he was able to see when he got the anti-inhibitors in for that, was he was able to see that as a child, he made up that breathing was bad. So he would hold his breath all the time. And breathing was bad because if Mom and Dad were fighting and he had an asthma attack and stopped breathing, they'd stop fighting. So asthma was good, not breathing was good, breathing was bad. Till he reversed that, he had significant lung problems. They started to change when he was able to reverse that. So my first invitation to all of us would be, and I include myself in this invitation because that's been one of my perennial issues. I when I need to do another layer of my own healing work around vengeance, I just watched the movie Braveheart. And actually, the last time or two I've watched it, I've probably watched it 20 times since it came out. The first 18 times, the scene where the king is being told that they need to go in and do an attack, and they have these Irishmen that are there, or they have arrows. The king says, send in the Irishmen, and the general says, well, but they'll get killed. We've got arrows. We can do this from a distance. And the king says, arrows cost money, which meant to him the lives of the Irish was worthless. Just send them in, let them die. What does it matter? Until the last twice I watched that movie, there would be layers of rage that would come up in me. And it's just the last twice I've watched it that I can actually more fully bring my human life and a mind of love to that type of insanity that happens in our world. And so first order of business to me is that I do my work. I clean up my reality structure. I clean up the observer effect in me that helps to create degenerative energy out of my observation of something. And then I bring a mind of healing. That's why we're opening our invitation with each radio show to assist in putting an end to war, because when we can get enough people, and I had one mentor earlier in my career that used to say all it would take would be 8 people. If we could get 8 actual human beings, and our definition of a human being is hold a newborn. You know what a human being is. If we could get 8 human beings on the planet at the same time, holding the space and observing, consciously, actively, presently observing the insanities, those insanities, by the light shining on them, would begin to dissolve.
But,
so that would be my input on the process.
It makes 100% sense to me, and it's really how I have lived for many years and how I've thought. And I guess maybe because so many deep layers were coming up the last few years, I began getting shifted by the news and people talking about it. And, but you're right, and it makes 100% sense to me. And I guess because of my own layers coming up, I've been kind of drawn back into that. So to keep looking at those, coming back to love, activating the love of a newborn within myself, and by releasing those old patterns and canceling them, I guess that's the best thing I can do. And it totally makes sense. So thank you.
That is the most, my input would be that is the most powerful thing that you can do. And then when you behave out of that space of active love, instead of doing things like we've seen before, like on television, I remember during the Vietnam War, there was a guy who carried a sign that in one of the marches was televised, and the sign said "Fight for Peace." And actually, Reagan's war advisor back in the Reagan area wrote a book called "Fight for Peace." And I mean, you want to talk about an oxymoron and how to divide a house against itself. There it is.
That totally makes sense, Michael. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and hang up and look forward to listening to the rest of the show. Thank you for the reminders, and it really has been how I've focused much of my life, and I guess I got a little off track lately, and it's always good to have friends to remind us how to get back on track.
Well, and you know, we go through things in layers and stages, and I love the African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And we're delighted to be traveling this journey with you and everybody that's on the show, as together we learn and understand and create that space of light and support that brings transformation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And you guys have an awesome day, and I'm loving the DVDs, by the way. They're excellent. So highly recommend them to anybody. So thank you so much.
All right. Thanks,
okay,
Terry. Thanks for the lessons. Bye-bye. And we're so blessed, today that we have the world of physics to support us when you look at issues and situations like this one that we're just talking about. Because when you understand from a science point of view what energy does, energy radiating from us, that we literally, they can take a particle, and one person measures the particle, and another person measures the particle, and the measurements are different. And they've come to the conclusion that the reason is because of that observer effect. And when you recognize the power of the observer effect, you especially begin to recognize it within your own circle of influence, your own family system, your own relationships. That observer effect is pretty powerful, and it's pretty awesome when we realize that we can make it a difference on a level that literally can be measured. You know, there was a fellow named Marcel Vogel. We talk about this in our Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop. Marcel Vogel was a 23-year senior scientist from IBM. I had the privilege of working with him some 30 years ago. And Marcel had the instrumentation in the laboratory with which to take a picture of the high-energy waves that leave the mind when we think a thought. This is what creates the observer effect, that everything I hold in me is a frequency and sets up a resonating energy. And when I change that energy, I change the dynamic of what's happening in my world. So we're here to understand that principle together and to apply forgiveness when we find ourselves in any form of pain. Now, you'll notice that in the Greek world, they teach us that somebody else is the cause of our pain and that what we need to do is forgive them if we're in pain. And we suggest, if you believe that it's about forgiving people, that you stop forgiving people and you begin to apply forgiveness where forgiveness is designed to be applied, and that is inside yourself. Anywhere that there's any form of hostility or fear, you apply forgiveness and you begin to change that dynamic of hostility or fear in yourself. Now, most people live in a world where their mind shows them evidence that that's absolutely not true. They're only in hostility or fear because of what Charlie or Bill or Mary or Harry said. And my offering to you is that, yes, that's the lie your mind shows you. When you use the language of projection and say, Harry made me mad, then your mind will show you that Harry made you mad. And guess what? Now Harry's in control of your life. If you like that, then don't forgive. If you don't like Harry being in control of your life, then change your language. Gee, you know, Harry brings up anger in me. I think I'll apply this forgiveness worksheet to my anger, not to Harry, not to me, but to my anger, to delete my anger. You know, it's sad that nobody in the last 2,000 years has told us, and it's because we didn't know. We were taught by the Greeks that forgiveness was about letting somebody else off the hook for what's happening inside of us. What we've discovered in translating some of the most ancient Aramaic manuscripts of the words of the man named Yeshua is that forgiveness is how you remove what never belonged in human physiology. It's got nothing to do with letting others off the hook because that particular something is in our physiology. But our brain can trick us. Eyes deceive and ears hear falsely, says the Course in Miracles. So we're here to support everyone. And of course, the way you can tell if your eyes are seeing falsely, if your ears are hearing untruth, is there's an indicator, an infallible indicator that will always tell you when your mind is lying to you. That indicator is, are you feeling any form of hostility or fear? Which, of course, means if you look around the world, most of the time, is living in an hallucination. The belief that what's going on inside of them is caused by something outside of them. We're here to shift that belief and that understanding. So, Jeanie, you've got another caller. We'd love to hear your sweet voice, whoever's calling.
We have Athena on the line. You're on the air.
Hi, how are you today?
Welcome, Athena. I'm doing well. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Jordan.
From where?
From Jordan, in the Middle East.
Oh, awesome. Welcome to the show. We're glad you're here.
Thank you. My question has to do with animals and specifically cats. There's a lot of homeless cats. Pretty much all of them are homeless here, and live, or feral, basically. And
Right.
For whatever reason, I seem to attract them. Like they are always coming to my home, and I love them, and I wish that there was something that I could do for them. But I'm wondering now, when you're talking about how I perceive, about perception and stuff. I don't know exactly my question, except for that I was going to ask, is there a reason why that they're so attracted to me, or is there anything that I can do to shift my perception that will, in fact, change their reality?
Well, my take would be, first of all, I'll put up the thought. I'm not sure what language is common there in Jordan, but the book Why Is This Happening to Me Again is on our website in Farsi, if you can want to point that out to people and let them know. But I think you actually answered your own question when you said, and I love them. If people don't keep cats as pets, and usually that would be because, they spurn them, they don't want anything to do with them, of course, that observer effect that we're talking about sets up a vibration, sets up an energy, and the cats are going to steer clear of that. They are pretty energy sensitive. And so if you hold a space for them, and if you have a love for them, and in fact are a human being that wants to support them, there's definitely an attractive vibe that's going to tend to pull them in. It's just like with we as humans, if you walk into a room and there are people there who are in, hostility and negativity and, look you up and down like you're some sort of a, weird creature, you're not nearly as attracted to them as you are to the ones who look at you and smile and set up the vibration of, hey, how you doing? It's good to see you. Let's talk.
I gotcha. That makes sense.
And of course, the person who sets up the vibration of negativity toward anyone or anything, one of the problems with doing that, and why I wouldn't suggest the solution that you adapt a negative attitude towards those cats, is because you get the original, they get the carbon copy. One of the DVDs that we make available is one called Mind Body Bioenergetics, and there's a cell biologist named Bruce Lipton who, in the laboratory, is pointing out that when we think a thought, i.e., a negative thought, not only do we set up that frequency that we were talking about with Marcel Vogel that radiates out toward whoever we're thinking that thought about, but that thought inside of our own structure becomes a literal neuropeptide, a literal molecule. And that molecule, that neuropeptide, is the way that cellular communication takes place. And that neuropeptide circulates around inside of your body until it finds a cell with a receptor site that matches. It lands on that cell, and then the cell replicates the neuropeptide chemically, and you're living with the chemistry of your thoughts. And so I support you holding a space of love for those cats. You might want to have a conversation and say, gee, there's not much I can do to help you today, but I will, send that space of love to you. But that would be my offering.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And the thing that concerns me is they come in our house, they spray, they spray around our yard, or like if we leave the door open, they'll come in and plop.
Yes.
And it's getting annoying, and I'm just like, oh no, is this backfiring on me by loving them and stuff? Now they're coming around, and I guess the reason they're doing that is because they're trying to mark their territory. I mean, I don't really know. Now it's starting to become a problem.
I think it's a pretty common way that the feral animal marks its territory, and it's saying, hey, this is my home. I like it here. You might, literally, I've heard of people who've had problems with animals like that, or even bugs, and they'll have a conversation with the animal saying, I love you and I care for you, but this is my home, and this isn't the place for you to be. So, here's the perimeter. You've got to stay outside. And I've heard of people having those kinds of conversations with animals, and the animals respecting it. So you might try that. There's a book that you might find really interesting to read, and it's called Kinship with All Life. I forget who the author is. It's been 25 years since I've read it, but it's an awesome book, Kinship with All Life. You might find that interesting, and you might find some helpful tips in dealing with those animals in that book.
Great. Well, thank you. That all makes so much sense. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And how did you sound like you have a very American accent, so I take it you're not from Jordan?
Oh, no, I'm from California, and I have a Jordanian husband, and we lived in America for like 13 years, and when the economy went down, we kind of decided, maybe we'll just move over to Jordan. So we're over here we've been here for a couple of years now.
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
We would love, if there's a large enough group to support it happening, we'd love an invitation to Jordan to come and teach forgiveness work.
Oh, well, I will definitely try and work on that because it would be wonderful. Absolutely
cool.
Wonderful.
What's the common language there?
Arabic.
Well, we do have an attorney actually in Palestine that's working on an Arabic translation of our book, as well as the Farsi already being available. So as it develops, it'll be online free for people to download.
Oh, that's perfect. And, Palestine is, so close to me. It's like a half hour.
Right.
So, yeah,
cool.
That's, never know. Go to Palestine, come over to Jordan, make a little Middle Eastern trip.
That would be awesome. We'll, if you're in the chat room, maybe you want to just give Jeanie some contact information in the chat room, or email Jeanie, and we'll put your contact information in our database. And if we get in that direction, we'll certainly keep you posted. Jeanie's email is JEANIE at WHYagain.com.
.com. Okay, I will.
Awesome.
Nice
to meet you. Blessings.
The other thing I was going to say to you is you had mentioned that, if it only takes 8 people to create peace, why don't you have a show and we'll get 8 people together and we could try it.
Well, that's what we're doing. Now,
good.
When we're talking about 8 adult humans who actually function as human beings. That is, that they've each handled their capacity for hostility and fear, removed hostility and fear, and are able to literally embody or incarnate the active presence of love, the active presence of a human life into the world.
Gotcha.
And we're working toward that. And we actually had a gentleman, he was on the show yesterday, or pardon me, I think it was Thursday, he called in, and he was in communication with, what he considered to be higher forms, and they informed him he didn't have any knowledge that I had been given this piece of information by one of my early mentors back 4.5 decades ago, that all it would take would be 8. And in our conversation, he just spontaneously came forward with it. The information he'd been given was that there were 7 human beings on the planet right now at this time. And so we may see that shift. And, of course, if you look at the Mayan prophecies, 2012 is supposed to be the year. I don't know if you were on the show the other day when we talked about the piece of prophecy that the Pope just released, but back in the 50s there were 3 young girls who were given prophecy. They had a visitation by Mother Mary, and one of the pieces that was sealed up by the church back in the 50s that came out just a few months ago from the Pope was that 2012 was going to be the year that men would lay their weapons down. So we may be on the verge of it.
Wow, that's interesting. So it's actually 8 people that are kind of like, I don't want to say chosen, but they've got some kind of special qualities to be able to carry that light and spread it. Yeah?
Well, I would say, as opposed to 8 people who are chosen, that is 8 people who have chosen to embody themselves as human lives rather than as the hostility and fear-based non-beings that tend to govern our world, that they bring in something different, and they've made that choice. That, there are a couple of guys who about 3 years ago started a project called the Civility Project, and their basic request with this civility project was that they were going primarily to the political world, although not exclusively. They actually put the invitation out to the whole globe. But they literally began communicating with the 535 members of Congress and the 50 governors of the 50 states of the United States. So 585 of our leadership in this country. And the request was, with the Civility Project, that each person would sign a pledge in all of their public interactions to be civil with each other. They promoted these 585 leaders for 2 years, and they got 3 people who chose to sign a pledge to be civil. 3 who at least were approaching, I'm willing to live a human life. So it's really about the choice we make.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just not very common at this point, sadly.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, great. Well, yeah, I'll email you a little bit about that. Because I would like to work with you further with that. And thank you for your show. It's wonderful.
Awesome. And, you know, another thing you can do over there in Jordan is you could start a study group with the tools. Start bringing people together and teaching them the tools. A lot of people who haven't worked with our work will get our DVDs and start showing DVDs and doing worksheets together, listening to the show together, and working on developing a work group, working with the tools of forgiveness. So we'd invite you to do that if that fits in with your purpose and your time available.
Yeah, that's interesting because, you know, one of the things I can do over here is teach English. And so I was planning on teaching English, but offering like the more intermediate class, but with a specific subject, you know, not just to teach random English stuff, but actually have a focus, you know, something that, you know, some kind of self-help or self-empowering, like teaching the law of attraction or, you know, some of these, you know, kind of philosophies that you're talking about. And so maybe I could, I'll get your DVD and work with that.
Well, we have a whole curriculum. We've got 15 different DVDs, 2-hour live workshops that lay out a whole work project for people to do, to deal with and heal themselves inwardly and to heal their communities, their family systems and such. So we would love it if you wanted to start a support group. It would be awesome to be able to put on our website that there's a support group in Jordan. That would be fabulous.
Great. Yeah, I'll go to your website and check it out, and I'll be in contact because that's definitely along the lines of what I've been working on doing. So it's perfect.
Cool. Well, you know, when I first met Jeanie 7 years ago, about 3 months after we met, she was introduced to the work that we do now, and she started a support group the next week. And I'm not sure at this point whether those support groups are still going, but I know that at least 3 years later, and that was after we'd started traveling for a year, someone had taken the support group. There were actually 2 support groups working with the tools, and she started just from scratch. She didn't know anything about the work, and she has accumulated a lot of information about starting a support group. And that information is on the website under support groups. You can read about, you know, how to get one going, what kind of issues you tend to come into, and, you know, just support in doing that. So that would be awesome. It would be cool to hear how it unfolds there. Yeah,
thank you. This is such a great idea. I'm so glad I logged on.
So am I. How did you hear about the show, by the way?
Well, I'm just over here. I'm an artist, and I'm just working on some designs and stuff, and I like to listen to things, and so I discovered Blog Talk Radio, and so I always go to the spirituality section, and whatever's on air that looks interesting, I just click on. So it was kind of I was just led here, I guess.
Cool. Well, spread us around over there. We appreciate you and blessings. We'll look forward to at some point getting face-to-face with you.
Sounds great. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Blessings.
Bye now. Blessings to you.
Awesome call. Awesome to see that sort of possibility happening. And as our commitment is to take this work to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. Our calling number, 646-200-4169. If you have a question for us, a comment, thought, we would love to hear what's going on in your world. We would love to support you in applying the tools that we teach to your life, and we have a whole range of tools. If you haven't looked at our website, the workshops we teach range from, of course, forgiveness with why is this happening to me again, to healing through relationships, communication, did you hear what I think I said, codependence to interdependence, purpose, personal power, and commitment, empowered to heal, mind shifters, still point breathing, getting the stress you need. We work with stress management. There's just a whole range of tools, and our commitment is to get them into people's hands. So if you feel inclined, one of the most awesome things, and I know that whenever Dr. Tim is on the phone, and I don't know whether he's actually on the phone today or not.
He is on the phone right now, and we do have another caller, too.
Okay, well, let's just throw this open to Dr. Tim for it, because I know that with the fact that he's been doing a support group for, I guess it's almost 7 years now, that Dr. Tim, you're probably the best testimonial there is for the power of starting a support group and what it does for you. You have anything to share at this point that might inspire us?
Well, I think it's absolutely life-changing for me. I've had people over the years who have asked me, why do you do that? And why do you donate your time? And why do you do it so often? And why are you watching the same videos over and over again? And the only answer I have for them is that aside from it being the highlight of my week, I benefit in ways that I can't really put into words. I can approximate it with things like I get energized, I feel renewed, refreshed, I feel the love in that room, I feel like I'm contributing something to other people, I get insights into my own issues that I don't get any other way, I throw off more of the anger and fear and sadness that I've been feeling over the years. I can actually say that without any hesitation that my life is more peaceful and calm and loving as a direct result of the worksheets I've done and the support groups I've participated in for the past 7 years. And no other single factor has contributed as much to that process as the support group and the worksheets and really digging into what underlies the message in each of those videos.
Well, that's certainly powerful words, Dr. Tim. And for those who might not know who Dr. Tim Hayes is, he's a teacher of this work up in the Chicago, Illinois area, and he's been a practicing PhD psychotherapist for, 35 years now, Tim?
Yeah, it's 37, going to be 38 in August.
38 in August. Well, happy anniversary coming up, and that's pretty powerful from the point of view of someone with all the training and all the different modalities that you use for you to say that. So we appreciate you being on our team, and we certainly love being on yours and getting to share the planet with you with the awesome work you're doing with folks.
Same here.
So I think Jeannie's got another caller for us, unless you have another thought for us, Dr. Tim, before we take that call.
No, let's go ahead and hear the call.
Okay, first there's also a question in the chat room. And it says, can you heal a relationship if you're the only one working on it? Just wondering because I live with my mother-in-law and the relationship is bad. We avoid each other. Can I change and then it will change, or does she need to be part of the change?
Well, here would be my input on that. First of all, I'd let go of my concern about healing the relationship, because the relationship is not diseased. The relationship is a perfect reflection of two minds who interact with each other. And generally speaking, if you're in the standard mode of communication of our culture, then your communication is, she has a problem and she needs to work it through. So to shift, and it's kind of like where we started out. If you weren't listening to the beginning of the show, when we're finished the show, Jeannie will have it posted in the archives. You might want to give a listen. But Carrie called in and spoke about how, war makes her sad. And our input is, war doesn't make you sad, but if you've got sadness, war or anything else that can resonate it will appear to make you feel that way. And so we think a relationship needs to be healed because, there's conflict in that relationship. But in every relationship where there's conflict, there are two beings who have some measure of conflict in themselves. And so my invitation to you would be, as opposed to focusing on healing the relationship with your mother-in-law, that you focus on healing you. And as you heal you, your capacity for hostility or fear, you'll come forward in a different, from a different space. And as you do, the relationship has to shift and change. Jeanie likes to use the example of, the old game of tug-of-war. If you have two people each pulling on a rope, you got a tug-of-war going on. If one person says, I'm dropping the rope, the other person's game has to change. So my input would be that you can use these tools totally, completely, 100% unilaterally. I'm going to do my work because I choose to heal. Now, I've had people who said, well, if they're not going to do their work, well, heck with them, I'm not going to do anything. And, that's kind of like the person who has an argument going with, American Airlines and contacts American Airlines and buys their most expensive ticket, and the day the flight's supposed to leave, having paid for that ticket, they call the airline and say, and so there, I'm not going to get on your darned airplane. It's like, I'm not going to heal myself because this person won't do their work. Certainly, it's a whole lot more fun if you've got somebody who's ready to play, who's willing to jump on the bandwagon and do the work as well. But I wouldn't condition my doing the work on whether or not they do. I would say I will do it unilaterally because I choose to heal me. As I drop my end of the rope, the game is going to change. And I will tell you that I've seen such awesome changes in people who do this totally, completely one-sided. The other person doesn't even know they're doing anything, and there are awesome changes that happen in the relationship. Now, 4 particular things that I've observed over the years when one person in a relationship begins to do their work. And that is that as they do their work and they start to change, the person they're in a relationship with watches them and goes, wow, obviously things are changing, and this looks great on you. I want some of that. How do I do this? The second response that I've seen over the years is, wow, I can see this is really working for you. Cool. I'm not interested, but I can support you. The third one is, I am so peeved that you're not playing this game of tug-of-war with me anymore, and I can't control you, that I'm going to crank the heat up as high as I can and see if I can intimidate you back into the corner where I'm used to you being. I'm not used to you being this peaceful, connected person. I know there's one gentleman who actually teaches a support group or has a support group in Boca here, and he was sharing with us recently that he had been, since childhood, a pretty hostile person. He'd been adopted and shuffled around in the world and abused, and so was in a place of pretty high intensity emotionally. Went into military and really was good at that because of that hostility. In fact, he was on the show about, 2 months ago, I guess, maybe 3 months ago. If you look in the archives, there's an interesting interview with Michael. And Michael shared in that interview how when he came back from war, he would go trolling, I think that was the word he used, trolling in crack neighborhoods. Not for crack. He didn't do crack, but he would go trolling in crack neighborhoods knowing that people who are doing crack tend to steal and rob people. And he'd go through those neighborhoods hoping somebody'd jump him so he'd have a reason to turn around and beat the hell out of them. And do a service for humanity in the meantime. Okay, Michael, we're going to drop that thought. But anyway, that's what he used to do. And he was sharing with us recently. We just had dinner with him and the other night, and he was sharing with us that his daughters don't like the new him. They're agitated and upset with him because he's not the angry person that he used to be, that he's in a peaceful space and holds a peaceful space and has peaceful conversations with them. And they don't know what to do about that. So they, to some degree, have cut off communication with him. And that's the fourth thing that I see happen when somebody unilaterally does their work, and that is, first one, I love it, I want some, I love it, not interested, I'm peeved, and I'm going to crank up the heat to try to get you back in the mode I'm used to you being in. And the fourth one is, there's no resonance, there's no energy here, I'm out of here, I'm leaving. So they're the four things that I've seen happen over the years when people choose to do their work. And you kind of just have to let the chips fall where they may. But yes, you can absolutely do it one-sided.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please do, sweetie.
There was a gentleman in one of our workshops who he and his wife were actually almost to the process of getting a divorce. And actually the workshop that we're going to do tonight here in Boca Raton is Healing Through Relationships. And we use a tool called the commitment. And you can get that online as well. And so I suggested that he read the commitment to his wife and just see what happens. And it starts out, I promise to trust you enough to tell you the truth and to be true to you. And it goes on. It's a beautiful commitment. A couple weeks later, maybe 3 weeks later, I heard back from him, and he was like, we're on our second honeymoon. Everything is awesome. He said, I've been reading the commitment to my wife every day. And he said, it's just phenomenal how our relationship has changed. And I asked him, I said, well, is she reading it back to you as you're reading it to her? And he's like, what? I said, is she reading the commitment back to you? And he goes, she doesn't know I'm doing this. So he was reading the commitment, like, I guess in the bathroom or something, to her, but not to her face. And she didn't have any idea about it at all. But it changed him and it changed their relationship because he was willing to do his work, even though she wasn't doing anything about it, she wasn't participating in it, and she didn't know anything about it. So this person wrote back in the chat room and says, thank you so much. I'm willing to do the work as this is getting unbearable. I look forward to healing myself and seeing the change. I am afraid she will show the third response, the intimidation, but I'm willing to try it again. So, Holly, that would be an opportunity to do a worksheet on your fear. And the worksheets we're talking about, you can go to our website, whyagain.com, and download worksheets. And the worksheet is out there along with MP3s of radio shows where Michael walked people through doing the worksheet. You can follow along step by step. And Sarah wrote in there and says, all four of these have happened to me, and my brother first did the first one and then all the way down to the fourth one. So you're not alone. And we do have one more caller.
Maybe, perhaps before we go to that caller, we just share, I don't know whether Nene might be listening today or not, but Nene is someone who did teacher training at Heartland last year, and she's been teaching work in South Florida. And she called into the show a couple of months ago and shared how she had a client who came to the workshops, and she did some personal work with them. And this woman had a son who she had raised in her home, and he got married. And when he married, he disappeared from her life, totally cut off communication. Literally had not heard a word from her son in 10 years. He'd been married 10 years earlier and disappeared. And Nene suggested, they did some worksheets around that, and she suggested that she read the commitment to him every day to his picture. She started to do that. 3 weeks later, there was a knock on her door. After 10 years of zero communication, her son is at her door wanting to resolve their relationship. We are energetic beings. We're coming full circle with the beginning of the show, the observer effect. The energy you send out will tend to bring the expected result. And if the expected result resonates some form of hostility or fear in you, then clean up the hostility and fear and watch how things change. We do live in a participatory universe. We are not independent of anything that happens to us. So let's listen to our caller and see what they have to say.
Okay, it's area code 630. You're on the air.
Hey, Dr. Ryce. This is Mark again from Chicago.
Hey, Mark. Welcome.
Thanks. Sorry I didn't call earlier in the show. I had two questions. One, I heard Dr. Tim was from Chicago, so it would be a real pleasure to know how to reach him. And number two,
are you in the chat room also?
I'm not on the chat room right now.
Oh, okay. Well, you can drop your information in the chat room, and or if you go to our website, there's a flyer for the support group that meets in one of the little towns up on the northwest side. I forget what it is now.
Okay.
On the northwest side of Chicago. Tim? Woodstock.
That's I used to live in Woodstock. You know where that is?
Yes, I'm in Crystal Lake.
Are you there, Tim?
Yes, I'm in Crystal Lake, and the group meeting is now in Woodstock, and there's another one in Cary, I believe. I haven't heard lately from the people in Cary, but
excellent. I'll reach out to you.
Awesome.
Very good.
So the question I had, so I've spent quite a bit of time doing the forgiveness work without any formal training, but reading your book and working through the worksheets. And the idea of active presence of love, I feel like I've experienced active presence of love, but I've come to a time where I shared with you yesterday that some people are injecting fear, which I know I own. I need to forgive that. But I was wondering if, just like there's a process for forgiveness, is there a process or something you're doing when you talk about active presence of love?
Yes,
or is it
actually,
just a result? Is it just a result of doing the work?
Well, it is. Yes, it is a result. It is a natural byproduct. When you strip away what isn't love, that's the only thing left. It's who we are. So that will naturally begin to emerge on deeper and deeper levels. But in step 4 of the worksheet, there's the step that says, I'm asking for help to return to my true nature, my newborn state of being, which I know is love. And what we suggest as an exercise, this is what we teach in the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, and it wasn't something that we were teaching when I wrote the book, but we suggest that you imagine holding a newborn child and then lock eyes with the child, looking into the child's eyes, begin to smile. And as you smile, allow or imagine allowing the energy of your smile to radiate from your lips turned upward up into the frontal lobes of the brain. In the frontal lobes of the brain, in the Aramaic, there's a filter there that was called Rachma. And Rachma is a word that represents a filter over intentions that allows the mind to only use intentions keyed to love to create its goals, and of course is part of what creates that observer effect that we were talking about. And so as you activate that frontal lobe of the brain, things tend to shift into a higher space. And the word Rachma is the word that was used when they asked Yeshua, what's most important in the law? He says you must have Rachma, you must have love for God, for neighbor, so as to maintain self. In Aramaic, that's what was said. And so this is a way that is a way to activate that filter. And we suggest that as you do your 5 worksheets a day, you focus on activating that filter and making it more and more solid as your natural state. People who are in hostility or fear don't have a clue what that even means. And our show is coming to an end again, Mark, so we would invite you, if you've got the space, if we need to do some more conversation around this, to call in tomorrow. We are going to close off. Please, we're going to be in Boca tonight. Come and join us if you're down this way. And bring a stranger to the show tomorrow. Create the best year yet of your eternal life. Delighted to be here with you. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie, who present that internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.